Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and I was always told how to voice the radio. So today, I'm going to be sharing with you an actual ruling that was actually made officially over in Japan involving a promo card, or a series of promo cards, depending how you look at it, that were released 9 years ago. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. 9 years ago, we got some really cool Pikachu promo cards. And then, all of a sudden, over in Japan, they're like, hey, let's make a ruling on it. And okay, maybe, you can go, well, we'll see. Yes, these Pikachu promos may have come out 9 years ago, but come on. Maybe this ruling involved a much newer card, and in a way it does, and in another way it's the Marowak from Fates Collide, and Fates Collide isn't exactly a set that just came out yesterday. It's rotated out. Fates Collide came out 3 years ago. 3 years ago! How it took people 3 years to realise this was a ruling that needed to be made, I'm going to be honest with you, right? I can understand why it took them 3 years to make this ruling, but I don't know why anyone felt the need to make it now. It all revolves around the Pikachu that was in the World Collection. We're going to talk more about the World Collection, what it was in a moment. We're going to have some time, and it's a really cool set I've never actually spoken about. And one that I picked up. I'm a little proud of myself. I have these cards. And, well, it's all to do with the first attack. So, what we had was 9 different Pikachu, all of which had the same attack, and it was hello. And hello, for a single colourless energy, says greet your opponent, then each player draws a card. Seems like a fairly innocuous card. You greet your opponent, well, that's quite friendly. Both players draw a card, and this is nice, this is friendly, your opponent draws as well. It kind of reminds me of the Togepi that came around in Roaring Skies that did 10 damage, and your opponent draws a card. It's quite cute in that way. So, how can there possibly be a controversy over ruling? Well, the answer is Marowak. You see, the Marowak from Fates Collide has an ability which reads, prevent all effective attacks done to you or your hand by your opponent's Pokemon. Here's the ruling. The greeting is an effect of an attack. Because you are the person being greeted, it is an effect done to you. If Marowak is on the field, your opponent doesn't have to greet you. You both just draw a card. Because Marowak turns off the effect of the attack that you must be greeted in order for both players to draw a card. How weird is that as a ruling? The ruling was actually made. It was actually made over in Japan this past week that if there is a Marowak on the field and you try and attack with this Pikachu, clearly in some kind of unlimited format because it rotated out long ago, you don't have to greet your opponent. Now, of course, let's say there is an ability locking Pokemon down, maybe Garboda or Garboda, or maybe somebody's played a Hex Maniac. Then all of a sudden, Marowak's ability turns off. Marowak and its player can be affected by effects of attacks, and now all of a sudden you do have to be greeted. And one of my favourite things here is that if your opponent's got a Marowak down, you can play a Hex Maniac so that you do have to greet your opponent to use this attack. I mean, you can always greet them whenever you want, but I love the idea that you can play Hex Maniac so that you are forced to greet your opponent rather than it being optional. It's the most adorable ruling I've ever heard of, and I love it. I can't imagine too many tournament games where this is going to be especially important or relevant or even come up. And it is very unique. But I tell you what, I kind of love that somebody made it. So, this Pikachu card then, where did it come from? Now, what it did, it came around in 2010. This was released outside of Japan. It actually came out in the year 2000 in Japan. We'll get to that in a minute. And it featured Pokemon cards in 9 languages. Now, the thing is, 7 of those should be fairly easy. Because, of course, we've got the 6 European languages: English, Italian, Spanish, German, French, and Portuguese, plus Japanese. Incidentally, the world's promos every year are released in 7 languages. It is those 7 languages. But it also printed them in Korean and Polish. Now, this is really interesting because although Korean cards are being printed now, at the time, Korean cards were not printed as a matter of course. Korean Pokemon cards really started around the release of X and Y, and back in 2010, we were well in the Heart Gold Soul Silver era, so it was kind of noteworthy to get a Korean version. Now, we also got a Polish version. Now, again, Polish Pokemon cards do exist. It's just we've not had very many of them. In fact, there were only ever 2 Polish expansions that were released: Diamond and Pearl, the base set, and Mysterious Treasures. That's it. That's all we ever got. Kind of sad, right? I do have a friend, actually, who's been collecting the Polish cards. It's more difficult than you might think to actually go and get yourselves all of both the sets. But hey-ho, it's doable. My friend's doing it. You can do it. I believe in you. Don't know if she's watching this video, but if she is, I believe in you. You can do it. So 7 languages that we would expect, and 2 that we necessarily wouldn't. Now, I haven't actually shown you the artwork here, at least not from all of them, so let's flick through them very, very quickly. We can see here that we've got the English version of it. Gotta have the English version. I mean, I say that as a guy whose first language is English. I can show you the Italian version. And then we've got the Polish version, the Spanish version, the German version, the French version, the Portuguese version, the Japanese version, and the Korean version. Now, as I've said, I did pick this up back in 2010. It seemed like a cool little collectible thing. No idea where it is now, but I've got a couple of big plastic boxes full of Pokemon cards. I'm willing to bet it's hiding in one of those. Not that I'm ever going to actually sell it, because look how cool it is. It's kind of nice there anyway. Now, I told you that this was a second release, and it actually was. It wasn't released outside of Japan, but in Japan they actually got a release in the year 2000. And the differences were that instead of getting Polish and Japanese, I know, right? They didn't give you the Japanese version. But then again, I suppose they were in Japan. We don't need a Japanese version in the world thing, especially if it's only being released in Japan. They wanted the other languages. They got Chinese and Dutch. Now, again, I've done a video about this. Dutch Pokemon cards, you had base set, you had fossil, and you had jungle. I'll link my video about Dutch cards in the comment section. And that was it. That was all we got. By which I mean all the Netherlands got. Not Holland, the Netherlands. There's a difference. So having a Dutch version of the card is kind of cool. Now, as for Chinese, again, we don't generally see many Chinese Pokemon cards. Not in terms of official releases. And interestingly enough, there were only 2 sets that have ever been officially released in Chinese. And they were Base Set and EX Legend Maker. I know, right? I get Base Set, that was the first one, that came out in Dutch and all that. But EX Legend Maker is just a one-off? That's weird to me, ladies and gentlemen. That's a little bit weird to me. So there we go. This is a weird kind of thing for me. I love that the World Collection is out there. I love that it's a thing. And I love that this ruling has been made. 10 years after the Pikachu came out, 3 years after the Marowak came out. Hey, now we've got confirmation. Now, I have had a little bit of a look on eBay, and unfortunately, I couldn't actually find anyone selling the complete collection, but there is somebody on there selling each of these cards for £15, And 9 times 15, I mean, it's going to bring you out 135 quid. That's quite a lot of money, ladies and gentlemen. That's quite a lot of money. So there we go. Nice history lesson about the Pikachu Pokemon World Collection and a lovely little ruling over in Japan. You know the deal though, ladies and gentlemen. I want to hear from you. Did you know about this? Have you seen this before? Were you aware of these cards? Do you have these cards? Tell me your stories in the comment section. Go nuts, be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at @TheWassy, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCG Radio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCG Radio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WassyPlays, where we talk about games that don't even have Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.